Imagine, just for a second, the sheer scale of this challenge. How do you upgrade the world's absolute largest rural livelihood engine? I mean, for nearly 2 decades, rural employment in India was defined by one single massive framework. But look, as economies evolve, as the climate changes, and as technology takes these massive leaps forward, even the most robust legacy systems eventually need a fundamental rewrite. So today, we're stepping away from the dry, dense legislative text to take a real macro view of this massive transformation in rural governance. Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to decode a truly pivotal shift in India's socioeconomic architecture. So how exactly do you redesign a safety net for millions of people? Well, in December 2025, the answer was introduced in the Lok Sabha. It's called the Viksit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission, or the VBGRAM-G Bill 2025. Now, you have to understand, this isn't just a minor amendment. It is a complete ground-up replacement of the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, or MGNREGA. We are literally looking at a fundamental restructuring of the why, the what, the how, and the impact of rural livelihood generation. All right, to achieve true concept mastery today, here is our roadmap. First, we'll look at the rural employment shift. Second, expanding the guarantee. Third, the financial architecture. Fourth, smart planning and tech. And finally, a final master revision to lock it all in. Okay, let's dive right into part one, the rural employment shift, moving from the legacy of MGNRGA to VBG-RAIN-COMG. To really grasp where we're going, we've got to recognize the massive structural pivot taking place here. We are moving from a system established way back in 2005 to a highly modern 2025 framework, and trust me, the new bill is far more than just a rebranding exercise. Under the old MGNRJF framework, we had this highly centralized financial model for wages, but the new structural approach, it operates definitively as a centrally sponsored scheme. That's a game changer. It mandates state governments to step up and notify a scheme aligned with this new national bill within 6 months. Basically, it's a systemic patch designed to fix the administrative and financial gaps of the past by decentralizing the responsibility, all while keeping a unified national goal. Moving on to Section 2, expanding the guarantee, we'll be looking at more days and some very strategic pauses. You know, the absolute backbone of any employment scheme is the actual guarantee it provides. And the magic number you need to know right here is 125. The baseline guarantee has been significantly expanded. Previously, rural households were guaranteed a minimum of 100 days of employment per financial year. That has now been explicitly bumped up to 125 days. The economic impact here is immediate and direct. It creates a much wider financial safety net for rural families who might be facing distress or just a lack of alternative work. But hey, what happens when the system lags and you demand work but don't get it quickly? Well, that crucial 15-day safety net from the old system, they kept it. If a worker demands employment and it is not provided within 15 days, they are legally entitled to an unemployment allowance. This is an absolutely vital accountability mechanism. It ensures that bureaucratic red tape doesn't result in immediate financial starvation for the workers who are depending on this program to survive. Now, this next part, this is honestly one of the smartest interventions in the entire bill. Think about the hidden challenge we had before. Providing guaranteed government employment often accidentally competed with the agricultural sector for labor during critical farming times. So the new system introduces a 60-day agricultural pause. State governments are now required to notify in advance a period of up to 60 days every single financial year where works under the scheme will simply not happen. This is specifically timed to align with peak agricultural seasons, like sowing and harvesting. It's a brilliant move, right? It perfectly balances the farm labor market, ensuring the agricultural sector isn't starved of workers exactly when it needs them most. Let's look at Section 3, the new financial architecture and the burden sharing model. Look, expanding guaranteed days and integrating all this new tech costs serious money. So how is this actually being paid for? Under the old model, the central government covered a full 100% of the wages for unskilled manual work, plus a big chunk of material and admin costs. The state just bore a tiny fraction. Well, the VBGRMG bill completely rewrites that dynamic. By classifying this as a centrally sponsored scheme, the cost-sharing ratio between the center and the states shifts to a 60-40 split, and that applies across the board, to wages, materials, and administrative expenses. States absolutely must have more skin in the game now, which fundamentally reshapes their fiscal responsibility. But of course, good policymaking requires nuance, and there is a major strategic exception here. For northeastern and Himalayan states, areas that obviously have unique geographical challenges and different revenue-generating capabilities, the funding ratio is adjusted to 90-10. The center shoulders 90% of the financial burden to ensure these critical, ecologically sensitive regions aren't left behind by that new 60-40 baseline. And right here is the real hidden challenge for state governments going forward. It's a concept called normative allocation. Basically, the central government will now determine a state-wise normative allocation, a strict spending limit based on prescribed parameters for each financial year. If a state spends beyond that central limit, they are on the hook for 100% of that excess expenditure. Plus, states still have to bear the total cost of any unemployment allowances and delay compensations. It's a very strict financial discipline mechanism that forces states to plan with absolute pinpoint accuracy. All right, Section 4, Smart Planning and Technology, taking us from Gram Panchayats all the way to Gati Shakti. So, how exactly do we optimize those 125 days of labor? Well, planning isn't just random ad hoc work anymore. Local Gram Panchayats are still identifying the projects, but their work plans are now legally mandated to hyper-focus on 4 specific themes: securing water resources, building rural infrastructure, developing livelihood-related infrastructure, and crucially, mitigating extreme weather events. This ensures we aren't just digging holes and filling them back up. We are actually building resilient, future-proofed rural economies. The whole workflow is super structured now. It starts at step 1 at the grassroots with those thematic Gram Panchayat plans. Those plans then flow upward to step 2 to these newly established state steering committees who consolidate district plans and make sure they converge with other programs. And ultimately, we hit step 3, where these plans are integrated at a national level with the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. This is a monumental shift, going from isolated, tiny village projects to synchronized national infrastructure development. Now, to govern a system this massive and interconnected, technology isn't just a nice-to-have anymore. It's literally mandated by law. The bill explicitly requires biometric authentication for transactions, which is huge for eliminating ghost workers. It mandates geospatial technology for planning and actually tracking the physical progress of works. Mobile dashboards are going to provide real-time tracking, and systems are required for weekly public disclosures. This is a hard-coded, absolute push toward real-time transparency and rural governance. Finally, Section 5, our final master revision and key takeaways. Okay, let's lock in those crucial visual memory anchors before we wrap up. Here are the 5 massive shifts you absolutely need to remember for immediate recall. First, the employment guarantee expands from 100 to 125 days. Second, the financial architecture completely shifts to a centrally sponsored scheme with a general 60-40 central state split. Third, we have the introduction of that strategic 60-day agri-pause to balance the farm labor market. Fourth, local planning is now strictly guided by 4 thematic areas, including climate mitigation. And fifth, all these local efforts are structurally integrated into the PM Gati Shakti Master Plan, enforced by rigorous TREC mandates like biometrics and geospatial tracking. I want to leave you with one final big picture thought to chew on. By implementing this normative allocation and moving to a 60-40 split, states are being handed a lot more localized planning power, but also significantly stricter financial liability. So how will shifting this massive financial burden to the states fundamentally reshape the efficiency, the politics, and the everyday reality of India's rural governance over the next decade? It's a really profound question about decentralized responsibility. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and keep learning.